There. This is Bob, and this is Tech Talk Weekly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is our weekly show where we give you 2 to 3 interesting tech stories, hit you up with something fun about the library, and get you on your way in 15 to 20 minutes each week. Today, I have Ronald Brown from Maine Library down here. How are you doing, Sir Ronald?
I'm doing wonderful, and thank you for inviting me. So hopefully we have an engaging conversation and get people to thinking about some of these topics.
Oh, just from the pre-show, folks. Ronald knows his stuff here. This is a great thing. Ronald, so you're in charge of Maine Library, as I just casually said it, but what does all that entail for someone who's not familiar? Because Maine's different than the rest of the libraries.
Yes, Maine Library, here at the Maine, I'm the acting library regional manager for the Maine cluster, which includes the Maine Library, that's the public service part of it, as well as the Fort Lauderdale Reading Center. Here at the Maine Library, we have 6 public floors, from computer centers, reference, all of the traditional resources. We have the Active Learning Center on the second floor, which right now is closed to the general public because of that wonderful thing called COVID-19.
Yeah.
So all of the resources, and we also have the hub of a lot of the system-wide services, like community engagement is in the building, um, tech services is in the building, and the administrative office is in the building, public relations and marketing is in the building. So it is the hub, and the building itself is, the architect was a renowned architect, and this was probably maybe one of the last buildings that he designed before his passing.
Yeah.
So this building is a landmark.
And we get
It's a
people we get
historical
people at Maine
building.
Library with cameras all the time. In the before
Yes.
times, we did all those things. Let's get started with some of our topics today because there's some interesting stuff that popped up in the news. Some of these are a little bit more complicated than others. This first one seems pretty weird, but it's interesting because this is the first time they've been able to 3D print a device that can use your own muscle movement to power itself. So you become the battery now. So can you imagine? Here's a quick picture of it here to see. They can do these custom 3D prints that wrap right around your bicep or right around your thigh. Your movements generate. They're a nice little fitness tracker. They can add some extra things in there now too. Would you do this, Ronald? Would you rather wear
You,
this than put a Fitbit on?
it's interesting because there is, um, I did a research study, participated in a research study where there were medications that they were using. They were thinking about rather than you having to take the medication,
Yeah.
that they would put a patch on you and it would dispense the medicine for about a month or so. This right here, I wouldn't have a problem with that because you think about it, you have to remember to put the Fitbit on. Whereas this, if this stays on you for a long period of time, you don't really have to worry about it. You don't have
Yeah.
to, oh, I got to go back into the house and grab this Fitbit. If it's already on there, it's just a second, it's just like putting on a pair of pants, so to speak.
Hmm.
You don't have to worry about it. And from what it's saying, when you look at the health benefits, that it's going to signal when there's something kind of off key to your things happening in your
Yeah.
body.
It can detect
The
heart rate. If something's really going to go, something starts going wrong with your heart rate and everything. Yeah.
But the only thing I was wondering about in terms of, who gets that information, or where does that information go? So it's sort of like, say for instance, if I
Uh-huh.
go to the doctor and he says, okay, we're going to do this new feature with you, and whenever something happens, this information comes to us so we can send you a text message or whatever and say, we need you to come to the doctor's office because
Yeah.
there's something off key. Some
I
people
think it
might,
depends too on what company you are marrying yourself to. Like I wear a Withings watch, and Withings is actually a healthcare company that went and developed physical stuff for their things to work with, unlike Apple as a you know big example of they're a tech company that is doing healthcare stuff now to feed into their ecosystem. So yeah, it's really different on what you can do.
yeah, it's almost, I think it's a really great thing because a lot of times we our body is telling us stuff, but we really quite don't know. And if this says, okay, this is what's happening, you get specific information, And so when you go to the doctor, if you decide to go to the doctor, you can say, oh, well,
Yeah.
can you check this? Especially for those people, I know with males, a lot of times when we do go to the doctor, we don't tell him or her every single thing that's happening to us.
I'm like,
And
here,
so a lot of
here's a spreadsheet. Go look at my spreadsheet for me.
right. So you don't have
And-
to worry about the MA
exactly.
asking all those questions and you having to remember all this stuff.
Yep. And you bringing up the big companies fits right into the next story because Facebook, and everybody's heard all about the Facebook leaks and all the hearings and all the other stuff. This is not about them going down. We'd already talked about that 2 episodes ago. This is about just the leaking of sensitive information. And so Facebook put in some new policies about don't leak information. And of course, the very first thing that happens is that information gets leaked. Yes, it went into effect at like 8 o'clock in the morning yesterday. And by 8:05, the policy had already been leaked out to the press and everything else like that. And I just, on the one hand, I'm kind of chuckling about it. But like you said, these companies control a lot of data.
Well,
And go for it. Tell me.
here's the interesting thing about that. And I guess when you are hired by Facebook, they're assuming they have people that are going to protect the company. They're going to work in the interests of the company. And so this sounds as if this person was saying, "Oh, well, you know, I went in there as a change agent. That was what my job was. I was supposed to go in and say, okay, Facebook, here's all the issues that you have. And so this is what we can do to fix those things." And evidently she's saying they just totally ignored her. So now her thing is, okay, let me put it out there to the masses. So it forces Facebook to correct the problems. But the leaking situation, from what she says, that everyone had access to all this information, to all of the
Yeah.
information. And it's like, so when you're working with a big organization, it's almost like you need to control who has access to certain pieces of information. Here at the library, I don't need anyone's social security number.
Right.
I don't really need your birth date. I don't need any of that information. Is that going to assist me in supervising you?
Or is
What,
it even going to
so
help us with the customers? We don't even take that information from customers.
right. And so and even there's certain pieces of information depending on what level you are, you have access to. So companies, Facebook, they should have known that okay, um, this
Yeah.
person needs this piece of information. Looking at each person's job, their function in the company, what they do, and what information they need. And somehow somebody just said, oh, well, we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to be laid back. I don't know if we can um, contribute it to them being the millennials and says, oh, everybody, it's a fancy free environment. We don't have
Yeah.
to worry about that kind of thing. Because I
I
don't know if
know.
people our age would think that we're, we're very
I was
protective.
amazed. That's the reason I picked this story because I was just amazed that all of this information is open on open public, open internal public to everyone in the company who can have access to it. And some of it is like good stuff that I think everybody should be knowing about. And
Right.
I think that some of the studies that Facebook was doing about the harm that this is doing, those are great studies. And those things should get out to everyone in the world so that everyone can see, hey, look, we as a company are assessing what our product does, just like we do with any car, with any other stuff. People put out a product, we all see the product sheets that go out there. Digital companies should be no different. They should be forced to do that too. But I don't know that you just want it to be there in an uncontrolled pile for anyone to go get. That seemed really crazy to me.
You wonder, and you think because we all, well, a lot of us are on Facebook and wondering who has access to all of the information that we put on Facebook and how are they using that information? What information that I put on Facebook that the person is sitting, that every cubicle in Facebook, in their headquarters or wherever they are, has access to all of the stuff that I put on Facebook.
Yeah.
That is personal, that could actually tell them exactly where I live, whatnot. who has
Hmm.
access to that information, who can just tap a key and print it out and just decide to sell it to anyone,
Yeah,
you know.
that,
So now
that's
where's the faith? What is our faith in Facebook as users? And I
yeah.
wonder if we're going to see a downtrend in the usage of Facebook users, and if there's any other platform out there that the
Well,
competitors
that's kind
using.
of the problem. That was the big thing that the outage showed is WhatsApp in particular has got such a hold. It's either WeChat, the Chinese app, or WhatsApp from Facebook. Those two take over something like 98% of the messaging in the world. It's an insane number. There's our Signal and Telegram or some of the other ones we've talked about on this show before. I get a feeling this story is one we're going to keep coming back to over the course of the next few weeks. This is not something that's going away.
No, no. It's almost like we'll it might become social media instead of tech talk,
Yep.
social media
I
meetup
hope
or
not. I
whatever.
hope not. I hope not. And I hope that it doesn't become climate change talk either. We've been talking about this. There's been a lot of stories recently, mostly because there's a big conference coming up in Scotland very soon. So a lot of news organizations have started putting out some things. And I grabbed this one story from The Guardian to show what some of the predicted results are of what's coming up over the course of the next couple decades for people. And let's stress that this is decades. This is not happening tomorrow in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
But this is centuries, not decades. It says centuries, so it's like we're
Oh,
looking, well,
some of it is right.
decades. It's because I think what, maybe 20 uh 21 21 0
Yeah. Yep. 2100. So we're
20, yeah,
80 more years away.
yeah,
We're
that's
already
right. That's
20% of the way into this century already. Is that crazy? We're
yeah.
21% in. But so the Guardian article actually shows some really nice comparisons to say, here's what happens if we control by 1.5 Celsius or 3% Celsius. So I've got a couple of pictures up here. I want to
Wow.
show one other thing. CNN put out a very similar one based off of the same stories, but I think CNN went way too overboard on the idea of how bad things are. Like, here's an example of what's happening in Havana. Like, this is modern day, drag it across, and you can see what it would look like. But they only went to the full extreme 80 years in a 80 years from now of
Scare
showing how bad it
tactics.
could be in some of these places. Yeah, exactly. Don't need to fear stuff. Give us real, open, honest stuff so people can understand what's happening and make changes and figure out what they're doing.
But here's the thing, because you said the conference is coming up, and so I would imagine as we begin to take this serious and people begin to look at what the things that we can actually do in order to control climate change, and really
Mm-hmm.
really considering this stuff. Sometimes I think you do have to actually put out there, this is what will happen. You put the what is it, for the worst,
Yeah,
possibly
worst
the
case
worst case
scenario. Yeah.
scenario, and say this is what's going to happen should we not attend to this. And those that care about the future of mankind will begin to start the work, and they know that perhaps they can start the work, and they probably won't the work won't be completed before their lifetime ends,
Yeah.
but at least that it can start and someone can pick it up, or they can train those that will take on the work.
Yeah.
um, and it's always like that. There's always something that we start or someone starts that they don't see the fruition of what it is that needs to happen, but it becomes a topic or it becomes research. And so it's out there now.
Yeah.
And so people make the
And I think
decision.
that there was one other quick article that I wanted to this is not a current one. I pulled this one up from way back in April, but it's a space along North Carolina where the saltwater intrusion has killed off part of a forest, a good chunk of it, and it's a big debate. Do you go back in and do you try to stop the seawater from coming in? Build a wall out there just to stop the water from coming in altogether, do you just let the trees be and accept what's going to happen, or do you instead transplant different trees, put mangroves in instead, and other types of trees that could handle the salt water and make it into a marshy area, which it hasn't been in the past. It wasn't that kind of thing, but now it will be, and it's making those choices. If we have to make some changes, and what changes are we going to be in control of those changes? I guess
Yeah.
is the better thing.
Well, when we, when we, um, everything is sort of interdependent on one another. We are interdependent on nature. And of course, nature, to some extent, we have to kind of do what we can do to preserve it. So, when we look at, okay, so are we going to just sit back and not do anything? Because it's almost like when it gets to your front door,
Hmm.
then now rather than be reactive, be proactive. The situation is here. And
Yeah.
like I was mentioning, there are alternatives to a lot of the things that we're doing. And just consider some of those things. We know that a lot of times that the cost may be an issue. Um, and there always, to anything, there's always a side effect or whatever. But when you look at just sitting there not doing anything,
Yeah.
versus doing something, you have to do something at some point because it could very well wipe out um, a number of things. It's almost like um, diseases that are out there when we just sit there and we see it, and then all of a sudden it has wiped out a lot of people,
Yeah.
uh, and you may have wiped out some of your discoverers or your inventors or whatever it is.
100%.
When,
Right. Yeah.
so you kind of
And part of
have
it
to
is
do
there's
something.
yeah, and sometimes there are simple things. I mean, we need to get rid of carbon, plant trees. Trees work really well to capture carbon. That's what they do. And that sounds really simple. And it's like, well, sure, of course we plant trees. But then you get into, well, who's not going to build a condo on that land now? Because instead we got to keep those trees, and who's going to be responsible, and where do you do and how do you do this stuff? So
Yeah, well,
I'm not advocating for more condos. Me personally, I want more trees and fewer condos, but hey,
well, and there are some places where when I go back to my old state or whatnot, and there was, like you say, there were trees over there, and I look up and I'm like, well, where did that come from? You know, at some point, like you say, if the simple things, leaving trees or planting trees, if that's a simple thing and it's cost effective, you can figure out a way how to possibly build higher. I know I don't like the higher, but in the inner city, condos are what's there, but what about in some spreading them out? Spreading the
hmm,
condos out rather than building them on top of one another. Every block there's no trees. I don't think here in the city you can count the number of trees that are in the inner city. You're like, okay, so but every corner there's condos, there's
yeah,
buildings. You know,
yeah,
maybe it'll.
I know that feeling. That's why I like one of the reasons I like living down here is all of the green that we have down here. And I live up in Coral Springs area where we have this a huge tree canopy across almost the entire city. It's really good that way.
Yeah,
I
in
wonder
my
the whole sprawl thing though, now that's going to require us to have the electric car idea. I'm
yeah.
all on board with that. I've got one. I'm happy with it.
Okay. I think my niece had an electric car, and when she had the hybrid, and when she would tell me about um her gas cost,
Yeah.
and I'm like, wow, that's kind of nice. But it was, I think her car was $50,000. But hey,
I
like,
haven't bought gas since 2014.
okay, you just plug up and keep it
Just
moving.
plug in at home, charge, take it. It is really it's a great thing to do I mean, you feel like you're helping the environment a little bit, but also you just feel better about the idea of trying to help pave the way for something like you said. Some people have to take a little bit of a thing, do this, do that. I obviously did not don't have the best of the highest rated newest cars, I
That's fine.
guess. But yeah,
That's fine.
exactly. It gets me from point A to point B. It gets me from work to home. That's what I need it for.
Right.
I can go. I'll get from library to library. I'm pretty happy with it, and I don't have to
And you
worry
could
about
probably drive your bicycle, ride your bicycle if you
Oh,
have one.
I got 2,000 miles on a bicycle already this year. I've been pushing and doing that there. It's so
Okay.
much fun. This has just flown right on by, Sir Ronald. Thank you so much for being here. I do want to point out one of the cool library facts for everybody here, besides what Ronald said earlier. Creation stations are open, folks. So come on down to Main Library. Creation Station here has moved from the first floor up to the third floor, expanding out a little bit of the footprint there, getting out in the middle of everything for people. And the studio. So all of you teenagers, remember, the studio is only 13 and 19-year-olds, but that's open. You can come on in and use it and play around and hang out, use the stuff, attend the programs. We've been doing a lot of that stuff, and we're still doing the programs online also. So come and see all of our stuff going on. But we're picking up steam again. Man, by November 1st, I saw the program listing. November 1st, we got a ton of stuff going on.
Yes, yes, they've been busy trying to plan some engaging programs for our customers because we want people to come back into the space, not only for Creation Station, but just to get the feel of the book and some of the other things that we have to offer here at in the libraries, from learning about the computer and stuff like that. So we're excited, and I'm sure our patrons are excited
Yeah.
to come back into the spaces for in-person programming and stuff like that. But
It,
remember, you must have your mask on when you visit the
we're
public
going to wear
library.
masks. We carry our masks with us everywhere. We got them. I always have them.
Yeah.
Even if I'm on camera, I always have it right there within reach. Let me throw up our closing slide here. Again, if you have any questions, want to recommend your favorite librarian or library, or if you have a tech story you want us to share, creationstation@broward.org comes right to us. We'll see you next week. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you. Have a great day.